Hello there. Welcome to Speaking of Business. I'm your host, Nancy Boyle. Today we're going to be talking about communication and how to effectively communicate with your customers and your coworkers. Joining me is Claire Rice, who is a certified business analyst at the Small Business Development Center at UNF. And Claire is an expert in communication. So, thanks for joining me today, Claire.
You're welcome.
And let's talk a little bit about you first, because you've got some special certifications, designations, and it's all wrapped around communication. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, it's Claire Rice Dryer now.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay, which is great. I have got a lot of certifications. So I am now at the Small Business Development Center, and I'm a certified business analyst. So I serve as a consultant at the SBDC. I also am certified master practitioner in the art of neurolinguistic programming. And a lot of people may or may not have ever heard of what NLP is, but it's really about how the brain and language work together to produce positive behavioral changes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and then last summer I got certified as an NLP coach as well. And I also have my SPHR, which is Senior Human Resource Professional.
So you know your stuff, basically.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a little over 20-something years, so been playing and practicing with it.
Well, good. Well, let's talk about communication.
Okay.
Why is communication so important?
Well, communication to me, it's the foundation of everything. You know, when you have a communication breakdown, you know, everything falls apart. So from a business perspective, it's really important to understand what I call the interpersonal communication, which is, you know, between you and me. But then from a business perspective as well, it's how are we communicating with our customer? And again, it needs to be in the language in which they want to be communicated with, so that you have to get special insights into how they think and what's going on in their head.
Well, and I guess, really, we're all communicating. Everybody can communicate.
All the time.
All the time. It's whether you do it effectively or not.
Right.
And that's really what we're here to talk about,
Right.
is how to be effective in your communication. So what are some of the, what do you want to call them, pitfalls, challenges, some of the things that occur that kind of misconnect on communication that typically we all experience?
Yeah, well, it comes back to, you know, when we think about interpersonal communication, it's like, you know, I will teach a class in communication skills, and I'll ask people, you know, how many of you have ever had a class in communication? Now, if you majored in that, then you probably obviously have had classes.
Sure.
But the rest of us, you know, we just learned by trial and error, or, you know, it's whatever we learned from our parents, and we learn from what finds that we works and what doesn't work. But the challenge, to speak to your point, is that we come with our own personal agenda with communicating.
Okay.
Right? And so when I have something that I want or something that I desire, I'm coming to you from my perspective. I look at it through my lens.
Okay.
So when I come with that kind of spirit of intent, it comes across to you. You know, you want something from me, or, you know, I want something from you.
Okay.
Rather than the, you know, how can I help you, Nancy? So it's that I think that's one of the first key things, is really starting from a place of spirit of intent. What would I like to have as a result of our communication when we get together?
Okay.
Even if I want something or I need something from you, I need to put myself in your shoes to say, okay, I'm coming and talking to you, and this is my desired outcome. How am I going to present that to you in a way that engages you to want to communicate with me as well? So it's a reciprocal conversation.
Okay. Now, is it different, and I'm kind of thinking it is, but is it different when you're communicating with your family or friends, and then your employees or your coworkers, and then your customers or clients?
Well, what's really fun...
Because you're talking intention, and it's a little different.
what the funny part is that with your customers and your clients, you have a tendency to be much more gracious. To be, right? You give them the benefit of the doubt. You
Yeah,
can be
that's
much
true.
more open. You're much more engaged in that way. But then when you deal with your employees, it's kind of like you just do it your way. You don't really think about it. And then with your family, it's like, hey, here's the deal. This is just, I'm just doing my thing. So again, it's really kind of understanding our own communication styles. And I call it the dance of communication.
Okay.
So if you and I were to dance together, I would want to reach out and extend my hand to you to start the dance. But with our coworkers, we have a tendency to just kind of barge in. With our family, we just say, here's the deal. And so it's a very different engagement. And if we were to take that same spirit of intent with our coworkers and say, gosh, I really want to communicate with them. How can I meet them where they are versus expecting them to meet me where I am? And same thing with family. Because have you ever gone in and, just kind of blurted something out to somebody and you feel like you kind of got slapped? So
We all have had that experience,
right.
yeah.
And it's because, you're sitting at your desk, you're doing your thing, you're right in the middle of something, and I come in, I go, Nancy, do this for me right now. You're
Yeah,
like,
I'm going, yeah, right, okay.
yeah, like, excuse me, am I just, toast here? Did you not see that I'm busy? So again, I have to get out of myself and out of my head to think, okay, I'm coming in, I really need to speak with Nancy, I need your help on this project. So how can I frame that? I also call it the jump rope technique. So with jump rope, do you remember jump rope when we were little, right? Two people holding just one rope.
Right.
So two people holding the rope and they're playing it. So when you're outside the rope, you're going like this, right? You're getting in that jump rope technique.
Yep.
Getting in the mood, groove, in the rhythm, right? Well, you need to do the same thing when you communicate with other people. So if I put my intention on you, where are you, what are you doing? And if I kind of get in the pace of where you are and I come in and I see that you're busy and I say, well, Nancy, I really need your help with someone. Is this a good time? Now, you can either tell me it's not a good time or it is a good time, but if I'm in that pace or that rhythm with you and you go, yeah, I got a minute, now we've made a connection. We've established rapport. And that's what really communication, the bottom level, the essence of it is about rapport.
Well, and you're asking, is this a good time, then puts the other person in a position of, like you said, being in rapport with you. It's like, I would maybe more apt to make the time because you asked me if I had the time than if you just said, hey, come on, I need your help, do this kind of thing. I sometime would think, well, maybe yes, maybe no. So, yeah.
And the cool thing about rapport, when you really think about rapport is about trust, it's about credibility, and it's about confidence.
Okay.
And in order for us to build, and that's the bridge between people, right? In order for us to build that bridge, that trust, credibility, and confidence, again, I have to reach out to you where you are so we can kind of start that dance and create that bridge. A lot of times what happens, like you were talking about the pitfall of what happens, we can have a disconnect in communication, and what happens is the bridge breaks.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we really have to be consciously aware of is how do we reconnect? Because if we wait too long, all of a sudden we were here, we have a little break, but if we wait too long, now the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a much harder bridge for us to build back between us to be able to reconnect. So a lot of times people will say, well, it was her fault. She was the one that broke rapport with me. So why should I reach out to her? Well, spirit of intent.
Yes.
What do we want to have as a result of our communication?
Right. Right. So if one, and really we're talking right now more verbal communication than written communication, because that's a whole other different bailiwick.
Exactly.
So verbal communication then, I think some people, especially earlier in their careers, may be a little unsure of how to proceed. So what are some of the tips or some of the suggestions you might have for people, even seasoned business folks, on how to be more effective in their communication with others, especially in the workplace?
Yes. Well, it comes back to some of the kind of the three components of interpersonal communication, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard those percentages, right?
Sure.
So over half of our communication is our body language. So it's the way we smile, that look on our face, the look in our eyes, right? And we're always communicating.
True.
But we don't
Yeah.
know what our body is saying to other people, right? And then we have the tone, the tempo, the pace, the rhythm, the accent. And then 7% of our communication, so 55 is nonverbal, 38 is the tone, and then 7% is the words. Now what's interesting is we usually think that's flip-flopped. And it doesn't mean that words aren't important, because
Oh,
words
sure.
are definitely important.
Of course they
But
are.
it's the package that we put
Right.
them in. So if we raise our conscious attention to how are we framing it, what's the package, the delivery method of those words, and really pay attention to that, then we can really establish rapport quickly. Because have you ever met somebody that you met for the first time that you just instantly connected with?
Oh, sure.
Right. So that's instant rapport.
Right.
The great news is that you can have that anytime you want it. But if you also met that other person where you meet them for the first time and you're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can still, it doesn't mean they're going to be your best friend, this other
Sure.
person, but you may still have to communicate with them. You know, maybe they are your boss, maybe they're in your family, you know, maybe they're a friend, maybe they're a colleague, maybe they're a customer. You still have to communicate with them. So the great news is you can take the skills that you already have and then you can transfer them into that other situation. So one of the things is using that first key, body language. Now I'm going to test you.
Okay.
All right. So here's a test. Everybody thinks they're an expert at reading body language.
Okay.
So when I sit like this and I look at you like that,
Yeah, it's a negative.
okay,
I'm getting a negative vibe, whether you're ticked off or whether you're on the defensive or because with the face, otherwise I would say you might be cold. But for the most part, if there's sort of a downturn to the face or like you're scrunching your eyebrows there, you know, it's really kind of a defensive negative stance.
so, and that's perfect.
Okay.
Because when you see this, right, you automatically look at it and you go, where have I seen that before? What does that mean? And now you are putting all that perception on me, and then you're going to treat me as if it's true.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
And the reality may be is maybe I'm just really interested. But the look on my face to you says, oh, she's judging me, or she's not interested, or she's defensive, or she's negative. So we don't go walk around with a mirror in front of our face to go, oh.
Well, so what do I look like?
Yeah, what do I look like to everybody else? So we don't know what our face is saying until we get that reaction from someone.
Well, and that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So the reality is that when you look at me like that, if I'm sitting with my arms folded and if I have, some scrunched face, the only thing you know about me is I'm sitting here with my arms folded and my face is scrunched.
True. But we do tend to make that leap.
We do, we
Yeah.
make the leap, but we really don't know anything more about that person. Now, if I'm curious, and that's the best thing that I've learned in communication, is to be curious.
Okay.
What's going on with that person? And the question isn't, so what are you defensive about, Nancy? Because then that puts you in this position of going,
Now I'm all of a sudden defensive.
and I have to defend my defensiveness, right? Or non-defensiveness. So I would say, it's like, oh, Nancy, I noticed that you have a kind of concerned look on your face. Tell me what's going on. And you go, oh, I think this is the best topic I've ever, heard about. I'm really interested in it. And then all of a sudden I can let go of that judgment I made, and then I'm getting more insight into you, right? I mean, because if you ever sat with your arms folded because it was cold,
Oh, sure.
right? But to the world, you could look like you're being defensive.
Right.
So we really have to be consciously aware of our body posture. So one of the ways we can establish immediate rapport with somebody is to notice their body posture. Now, there's a difference between mimicking, which is obnoxious, and mirroring, which is approximate.
Okay.
So if I see you, sitting there with your arms open and your head's kind of tilted, I can do the same thing, mirror it back to you. Because what that's going to do is what we like most in others is what we like about ourselves.
Okay.
So just being here with you, just to establish that rapport, one is I'm aware of you. So I'm raising my conscious attention to you. So I'm not inside here in my head. I'm
Okay.
going, what's going on with Nancy? What's the pace she's in? What's the rhythm? So I'm starting into the jump rope technique. I'm noticing if you're speaking, the tone of your voice. You know, and I'm not going to necessarily sit there and cross my legs just that and have, you know, how's your hand? You know, ones like this.
Because now we're mimicking.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's obnoxious. So
Right.
it's approximate. And what's interesting, if you notice people who are in rapport, and the best place to play with this is in a restaurant.
Oh,
or in a
gosh,
bar,
that would be
right?
great, yes.
So you're just sitting there and you're just watching people. Notice the people who are, their body posture's matching. And they're having this really engaged conversation. And then notice people who are out of rapport. And you'll notice one person may be off, you know, kind of like this. You know, they're really mismatching. They're not paying attention. So you can. That's a great place to play with it, is out in public. Now let me tell you where this is really useful. I mean, there's lots of places, but
Sure.
it's really useful, particularly in networking, because a lot of people are intimidated by networking. And the majority of our population are actually more introverted than extroverted,
Really?
much more so.
I did not know that. I
Yes.
would have thought it was the opposite.
It's not.
Okay.
Because what happens is they stay home. So at a networking event, the majority of the people that are out networking are the extroverts,
Makes sense.
right?
Sure.
Unless they've drug an introvert with them and they're like, don't go away from me. Stay close to me. I don't know these people. They're strangers. So it's a great way for introverts particularly, you know, to establish rapport with people, to find someone so they can see a group of people. And if they saw a group of people standing over in a corner and they're all talking and they have their arms folded, what do you think they can do to go get engaged with the group?
Go in there with your arms folded, I guess.
Exactly. You can just go in there and stand beside them with your arms folded. Now, they're not going to think you're closed or you're cold, you're defensive. They're going to look over and they go, oh, there's something about you we like. Hey, how are you doing today? Welcome. What's going on? Who are you? Tell us about you. You're automatically accepted into the group.
Isn't that funny? I never would have thought that.
And it's so simple and it's so subtle, but it's so powerful. But again, it gets back to the spirit of intent, is that I want to honor and appreciate you. I want to establish that trust, that credibility, that confidence, that rapport with you, which means I got to get out of my head, out of the, you know, a little head chatter, and I really need to notice where you are and what's going on.
Well, and I guess, especially in a networking situation, if you're there because you're looking for new clients or new customers or whatever, that's a great first step. But why don't we sort of follow through that scenario of going into this place where you really don't know anybody and whether they're arms crossed or not. Well, it's okay. Okay, I got my arms crossed, you got your arms crossed, everybody's got their arms crossed. Now what?
Right.
You know, this is sort of new to me. I'm a little uncomfortable in this environment. So how do I follow through on that initial step that I've taken in creating a relationship with this person or these people?
And that's where really, what's interesting that people try to do in networking, and everybody's got different approaches, right? But with a networking approach, a lot of people want to say, oh, how many business cards can I get? Right? And then here's what we do. We go and we get all these business cards, we put them in our purse or we put them in our pocket, and then we don't do anything else with them. So what good does it do to, you know, I call it the spray and pray method. You know, you're passing out business cards and you're collecting business cards, but you don't follow through. Because a networking event is really about meeting someone, creating a meaningful relationship, and finding out more about them to follow through. I would rather have 1 or 2 business cards or, you know, or 3 and have some really good in-depth conversations and then follow up with that person. Because it's the little things today, Nancy, that make you stand out, that people don't do anymore. You know, yeah, we can send an email. People probably don't do that. But it's not an email to say, oh, by the way, here's my product or service.
Sure.
It's like, Nancy, it was so great to meet you at that event the other night. I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk. I loved learning more about how your business started, you know, where you are, and thanks for sharing with me who your ideal customer is. So when I come across a referral, I'll make sure to refer them to you.
Much better email than nothing at all. Or, here's my widget. Here's a brochure. Attached, please find the brochure of my
Right.
widget.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because then it's all about me.
Sure.
Rather than really saying, I saw you, I heard you, I listened. And I have to have asked those questions of you when we were in the networking event. I'm not ready to, just tell everything about who I am and what I am doing. And then if if we're having a good dialogue, then you're going to ask me about me and my customer.
Sure.
So following up with an email is one way. You can follow up and also say, it was great meeting with you. We only had a couple minutes to talk. I'd love to have coffee. You schedule a follow-up face-to-face. So you really get to, again, it's about relationships. Another thing that people don't do anymore is write a handwritten note.
Boy, that's true.
Wouldn't it be great to get a note from someone that said, so great to meet you the other day, and hope when I see you at the next event, love to catch up with you again.
You're absolutely right. People do not do handwritten notes.
So it's really, again, it's about relationships. What are we doing to connect with people in a way that may be unexpected, but it's taking us to a deeper level?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I agree wholeheartedly with your point of being, the vacuum cleaner sucking up business cards versus having 1, 2, or 3 really meaningful conversations. Because you get that wad of business cards and you can't follow up because you don't remember who these people are.
Right.
You've got 50 business cards. You met 50 people for what, 30 seconds apiece? Even arms crossed or not, And so I think that, oftentimes I think that kind of, you miss the point on the whole concept of networking.
Right.
And so, to communicate effectively, you make it an effective networking experience, and then that translates into the customer experience.
Right.
So take us from the networking experience into the customer experience.
Well, and what I'd love to share and talk about is about how we really, so I'm a business owner, let's imagine, and I've been in business for a while, and so I have clients and customers. Now, there's a couple of categories of clients and customers, right? We have the clients and customers who are our ideal clients, the people we just love, they love us, and it's easy. And then we have those other customers. And Nancy, not all money is good money.
Yes.
Because some of these other customers, we might need to release them back to somebody else, and that's okay. They may be a better fit for someone else, but we keep, because we just, we need to have, revenue coming in. But what's the cost of that customer to you? It's extra customer service time, maybe you're giving them more products and services than you feel like to make up for that. So we want to understand that we have some of those, but what we really want to focus on is who are our ideal clients and customers, and how can we communicate to them? So again, the spirit of intent is, how can I fit into your world so I can provide products and services that meet your needs of the things that you want and need and desire? So we have different ways that we can do that. So we can go to our customer base and we can start, really looking, what kind of traits do they have in common?
Okay.
Right? Is the person if you really looked at them, and there's demographics and then there's psychographics.
Okay.
So those are totally different.
Okay.
So the demographics is, are they male, female, what's their income bracket, what's their age, how many children do they have? And those are all great things to know about your ideal customer. But there's the other things. What keeps them awake at night? What are their goals, their dreams, their aspirations? What problem does your product or service solve for them that they can't get any other way? What keeps them up at night? What are they worried about? What are they concerned about? Who do they want it for? So those are totally different questions that you can really ask and think about your ideal customer. And then once you define those parameters in your marketing, in your language, you actually start speaking to them in their language. And now it's me talking to Nancy, not me talking to, 500 people and doing that spray and pray method of marketing that we've all gotten used to, kind of we just throw something out there and
Right.
and hope somebody will stay. I call it the fishing method too.
Yeah.
It's like I'm throwing my bait out, reeling it in, throw it out. Not you, not you, not you. But when we try to market to everyone, we market to no one.
Exactly. Yes. Well, and it goes back to that building relationships.
Right.
It goes back to that networking event of 2 to 3 people. And if you've got a relationship with someone, then you know what their goals are. You know what keeps them up at night.
Right.
You know how you can help them.
Yes.
And then they're your loyal customer because they know you care about them and that you're there to help them be successful, and they're more apt to refer you as a vendor to their associates who oftentimes are just like them.
Exactly. And we want more of them. And what's really interesting is that it's kind of I think it's a unique phenomenon that's happened, and maybe it's because of kind of social media we've started to pay attention to it more, but we're creating more communities.
Okay, yeah, I can see
So
that.
when you think about that, if I'm looking for a provider of a product or service, I'm going to ask my friends first in my community, or I'm going to go on Yelp,
Okay.
right? Or some other source that has, going to Amazon, and I'm going to read the customer comments. Because there's a community of people that are telling me the truth. And
Okay.
whether I know them or don't know them, I am going to trust their comments, even if I know no one else that knows them. So the more we can create the community and we can build the community of more people who really like, know us, and trust us,
Sure.
right? Then it costs 5 times more to market to someone who's never brought your product or service than it is to market to a person who already knows and trusts you, and to get a referral. I would love to have that referral.
Sure.
Ask for the recommendation to get more like-minded people, more like-minded customers in my community. And now, not only am I helping to service them, but my community services each other. They help each other out with solving their problems, and it creates a totally different dynamic.
Yeah. So how do I find out more about how I identify my ideal customer?
Well, one of the things that we have at the Small Business Development Center is we have a new program called it's based on a book called Entrepreneurial DNA, and we have these assessment tools called BOSSI, and they're about how you are as an entrepreneur, how
Okay.
you look at the world. So we
Okay.
have the builders of the world who like to start something and finish something, sell it, and move on.
Okay.
We have the opportunist that's more of a, going after the shiny carrots, that are out there and move on. They're kind of more of our salespeople. And then we have the innovators who are always starting new things, and they're very creative. And then we have our specialists. They have a tendency to be in one field, so that's our attorneys, our accountants, and they want to be
Okay.
known for their expertise. So through this assessment tool that we have at the SBDC, we can help, clients and business owners understand who they are. It speaks to their communication style, but more importantly, it helps them to understand how they're building their business and how they can help their ideal customer. And within that, we actually have a tool.
Okay.
And it's really great because it's a one-pager.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so within this one page, it's called a business model optimizer based on their DNA. It's specialized for them. We start off looking at the target. And I love this question, Nancy. It says, who is the person and situation for which your company is always the best choice? Always the best choice. So we really start digging into your ideal client. Then we look at the problem, the solution, insight into your target. What are your conversion rates, your sales engine, your go-to-market strategy? What makes you different? And what's your team like? And then all of those key pieces. So we can really drill down to help you come up with those 5 core problems that you help your target audience solve.
Which is excellent, and unfortunately, we're out of time to find out any more about it, but that's a great tool. So you in the audience, thank you for joining us. I want to thank Claire for joining us today as well. And if you'd like more information from the Small Business Development Center, you can visit our website at www.sbdc.unf.edu. So again, Claire, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Nancy.
joining us today. And you in the audience, join us next time when we'll be speaking of business. Bye now. Bye now.